So the opening contest of the Rugby World Cup is nearly here. France versus the All Blacks, and this one could easily determine who finishes at the top of Pool A, though it is definitely the most crucial game for these two sides throughout the pool stage. But in this preview, we'll be looking through at the lineups for these two teams, the key players, as well as a score prediction at the end for who we think will take out the victory. But we will start with the home side, France. In terms of looking through their lineup, they have gone strong in the 4-pack with Wardy, Julian Marchand, and also Yui Antonio as the front row. In the lock and duo, it will be Cameron Walkie and Flemont. And then the loose forward trio, it is Cruz at 6, number 7 Charles Olivon, and number 8 Gregory Eldred. The 19 combination, it is a new one due to the injury that we did see of Intermac, though instead it will be Dupont and Jalabert out on the left wing. A man who I believe will be able to get himself a try at some stage throughout this game. It is Villiers, Mofana and Fiku as the midfield combination due to the injury of Dante, and then Damien Pinot and Thomas Ramos to close out this French side. For the All Blacks, they've made a few changes, mainly due to injury, and the first is not too far from the start of the side, that being at number 3, but number 1 Ethan de Groot, Cody Taylor at 2, and number 3 Nepo Lolala makes his way into the starting side rather than coming off the bench like he has in a couple past fixtures. And the lock and duo will be 2 Crusaders, Sam Whitelock at 4 with Scott Barrett at number 5. And the loose forward trio, this is where it gets a little bit interesting for the All Blacks, because theoretically these 3 men, some would argue their best position is 7. Now I know that Ardie Savia for a long time has been playing number 8, but of course has had quite a few minutes under his belt at 7. Yeah, going with the 3 open side flankers may benefit them in terms of being able to get that ball back quicker in the breakdown, but it could also be too much of a good thing. Could end up hurting the All Blacks a little bit. Looking through at the back line, Aaron Smith at number 9 with Richie Moong at 10. It was the expected combination that the ABs would go with. Mark Talia at number 11. Due to the injury of Geordie Barrett, it will be Anton Leonard-Brown at number 12 with Rico Ioane on his outside at 13. Will Jordan out on the right wing. And then at number 15 to close out the AB side, it is Beauden Barrett. But those are the 2 lineups. Both sides looking extremely strong. In terms of the betting odds, the All Blacks actually come in as slight favourites for this match, even though it is a home field advantage for France. And even though the ABs did lose their last game to the Springboks, does still seem like the TAB are back in the ABs to get over the line. But I have to say, in terms of all of these round 1 fixtures, this is the closest in terms of the betting odds, and perhaps it could be the closest in the scoreline department as well. But now jumping into key players for these two sides straight away for France, you don't have to look too much further than Julian Marchand. He is going to be starting at number 2. They have got Pietro Malvaca coming off the bench, so both men will be able to have a real impact. And we saw in the last game between the All Blacks and the Springboks that when the Springboks were able to get themselves inside of the AB's 22, the All Blacks were repeatedly infringing, giving away penalties, and if France do back themselves to go to the corner, that may be where they can get quite a few points. And of course, Julian Marchand, he will be throwing that ball in relatively accurate. He is quite high up in terms of percentages who have managed to cross the try line in this opening game. Looking through at the back line, there are quite a few superstars in this French side, whether that is Antoine Dupont at number 9. Of course, he will be wanting to get that ball out as quickly as possible to the rest of the backs. Damien Pinot, a lot of people have backed him to be close to the top try scorer in the overall competition. So he is certainly another one to be watching out for. He will be marking up with Mark Talia in this contest up against the All Blacks. Looking through at All Blacks key players. In the 4-pack, Ardie Savia, of course we know that in big matches, he does normally step up. There was a little bit of an exception of that rule in the last game up against the Springboks, but it did just seem like the All Blacks weren't able to build any momentum, which is the last thing that they want in this game up against France, with how strong the French can be when they are allowed to have more possession. We saw in moments of that game up against the Fijians recently for France, how dominant they could be when getting back-to-back phases. Same can be said in that game up against the Australians, but I would go with Ardie Savia as one of the keys for the All Blacks, whether or not that is that turnover game that he offers, but also maybe going off the back of the scrum for the All Blacks in this one as well. Another player for the ABs, I'm going to go with Aaron Smith. I talked briefly about Antoine Dupont, but Aaron Smith has to play that same role. Both of these sides world-class backlines, but it's whether or not the 9s are able to get it out there quick enough. I assume there will be quite a bit of rush defence on the fly halves, trying to put them under pressure. Something the ABs did very well in that first game of the Rugby Championship up against the Springboks, as well as Argentina was actually playing it a little bit deeper so that rush defence weren't quite able to cut off the play, and that may be a tactic that they need to use in this game up against the French. I assume that France will go for more of a kicking battle early on, try and force the All Blacks back inside of their 22, and then from there try and win that penalty or get themselves that crucial turnover. Of course, they would have loved to have Jonathan Dante available for this match, mainly because of what he's been able to do. I believe he got 3 turnovers in one of his recent fixtures, so he will be one to watch out for if he does get back from injury, although at the moment it sounds like it's a little bit shaky in terms of when it is that we are going to see Dante back for the ABs. In the back three, I believe that Will Jordan and Mark Talia out on those wings will be the main targets that the All Blacks try and get the ball to. Will Jordan, he's got an absolutely brilliant try-scoring record, very similar to Damien Pinot in that department. Of any time they touch the ball, you know there's either a line break or a try coming just around the corner. And Mark Talia, another option for the ABs out on the wing, who when playing well can be extremely dangerous as well. But this will actually be the first time in almost 2 years that the ABs have taken on France. The last time that it happened, it was the November Internationals in 2021. And in that game, it was a historic win for the French, 40 points to 25. So a pretty high scoring one in that regard. The All Blacks, that was their November tour, and a lot of people wanted to forget. Of course, they were struggling quite a bit in certain matchups, the one up against France being included, but this game, it will be a home field advantage to the French. And another factor that I haven't talked about yet is the temperature. It is supposed to be around that 27 or 30 degrees Celsius at the ground for the game, so it is going to be hot, it's going to be humid, the ball will be slippery, which doesn't bode well for the ABs after the handling errors in their last contest. But I believe if they can get through that heat wave early on, get through that pressure cooker that the French will offer them throughout the first 20 or so minutes, that is when the All Blacks will start to find their stride and start to get into the match just that little bit more. The benches could be one of the keys for these two teams. I see that for France, they have got Arthur Vincent as an option. I actually thought that he may have been starting at 12 rather than Mo Fana, but he offers a lot of physicality late in the contest. The All Blacks, they've got David Havili as well as Leicester Fainanuku, two men who have recently returned from injury, but are looking very strong in the short amount of time that we have seen them, whether that is Havili for the Tasman Marcos or Fainanuku being out on the wing. But this game, it's going to be absolutely awesome. It will be a 7:15 a.m. kickoff on Saturday morning for us here in New Zealand. We will be doing the live commentary on the channel for the game as well, so be sure to check that out. But now we are up to that stage of giving our score prediction. Now, we did actually do a video predicting all of the games of the Rugby World Cup, and for this game, I said that the All Blacks would win it 25 points to 22. Now, that was before even seeing any of the lineups. That was before we knew about the Geordie Barrett injury, before we knew about Jonathan Dante being injured. So there are a lot of factors that now play into this result, but I still think it's going to be a very close, down-to-the-wire fixture, which I think is exactly how everyone wants to see this World Cup start. I've seen more people predicting that the All Blacks have a chance of running away with this game than France does, but I think after that score of 40 points to 25 in favour of France the last time these two sides played, New Zealand can certainly not underestimate what France are able to do. But for this game, I am going to be bold, I am going to be brave, and I will be sticking with 25 points to 22 in favour of the All Blacks, and we will have to wait and see whether or not that scoreline will be a reality. But thank you all very much for tuning in. Like I mentioned, we will be doing the live commentary on the channel, so be sure to check that out. We will also have a post-match review of this match to let you know exactly what happened throughout the 80 minutes. But thank you all very much for tuning in, and I will see you all for the next one.